Oi! Yes! What's going on, everybody? It's Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Central Time. That means it's time for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We got UFC Vegas 43 coming up on Saturday. The main event is Misha Tate against Qileng Vieira. And we've got 12 fights on this card. We're going to break them all down from a statistical perspective here. We're going to give you a greasy four-leg parlay, and we're going to finish up with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. I love this card, you guys. I've got a good amount of bets down already. I'm ready to go through all 12 fights with you guys. I'm going to let you know what I'm betting. I'm going to let you know what I'm looking at betting. And I've got some ideas on who's going to be the ass shaving of the week this week, but you're going to have to wait until the very end to find out who that is. Luke Fulton, the first one in the room today. Luke, what's good with you, man? Thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. We got my guy Daz Files in the room. We got Andrutti saying just in time for the last hour of my night shift. Big up, Weezy. Appreciate the work you put in. Thank you for stopping by, Andrutti. Appreciate it. Daz Files saying, let's roll smooth, Jimmy, with your filthy cigar. We got Daz Files saying 30% likes, 3 of 9. Bad maths. And then we got Anaconda Bets saying, Ayo, what's up, Anaconda Bets? Good to see you in here, my man. And we got Daz Files saying, what's up to Anaconda? And we got Pocket QB, Lamar Jackson saying, Weezy, Breezy. My guy B in the room saying, let's make some money. Anaconda saying, what's up to Daz? Bailey Rippinger saying, back in this bitch. Bailey Rippinger saying, Jacques Tits lives on this stream. Yes, he does. He lives on right here on Just the Tip with your Uncle Weezy, an absolute giant in the world of analytic geometry. Rest in peace, Jacques Tits. And we got Jeremiah Nicola saying, Weezy. And Pocket QB saying, get it. We got my guy Brady in the room saying, oi. What's up, Brady? And we got Metalingus in here with us. Let's go, Uncle Weezy. Oi. That's right, Metalingus. Good to see you, brother. We got Mushroom in here. What's up, Uncle Weezy? Stats lead to stacks. And let's stack these cash tickets like flapjacks today, Mushroom. We got to get it. Rest in peace, Tits, says Pocket QB Lamar Jackson. And we got John Rashmel says, my meat doesn't last 5 rounds with Tate. Your meat doesn't last 5 rounds with Tate. Well, I'll tell you, Vieira might not last 5 rounds with Tate if she hasn't improved her conditioning, because that conditioning has been giving out late in fights. And instead of this being a 3-round main event, it is a 5-round main event. And I'm really interested to see if it gets past the third, how those championship rounds look for both of these ladies. And we got PayPal My Money in the room. What's up, dude? Good to see you in here. One of the stars from Brady's Discord. If you guys aren't on the Patreon for DFS by the numbers, you need to check that out. A lot of great information there. And we got the Cuban Assassin saying, we shaving the cupcake or what? We're going to find out, man. We got 12 fights to go through. So we're going to start from the very first. We're going to break them all down from a statistical perspective. Let me share my screen with you guys, see if my co-host, Smooth Jimmy Apollo, is ready to go here. And if he is, we can start breaking down. Yeah, dude, he's definitely ready. So we can start breaking down all these fights, man. Let's get it. And we got PSSA 31 saying, Jacques Tits time. Uncle Weezy is the man. Dude, thank you. But it's not me that's the man. It's Smooth Jimmy who's the man. It's all of you who are the men for hanging out with me. Rest in peace, Jacques Tits. He's no longer with us, but he's also the man. And we're going to hide this here. And we're going to bring this up here, bring up the adult, or bring up the AS. I was going to say Adult Swim. I don't know why. The advanced stats and the matchups. We got the measurable and career experience statistics. We got the striking and grappling statistics. We got the strength of schedule. We got the last 5. We're going to break it all down for all 12 fights. Let's get into it. And let's start with the very first fight of the night, which is going to be Luana Pinheiro fighting Sam Hughes, otherwise known as Sam Page. We're going to see right here that these ladies are very similar in terms of age. Sam Page is going to have a 3-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage here. Both of these ladies are orthodox fighters. Sam Page fighting out of Catalyst MMA. We got Luana Pinheiro out of Brazil and BH Rhinos. And then we've got Luana Pinheiro is going to have a 2-fight experience advantage here. She's got about 3.5 more minutes of pro cage time. The average fight time between 7 and 9 minutes for both of them. And Luana Pinheiro has been doing this about 2 years longer than Sam Page has. So a little bit of an experience advantage here for Luana, a little bit of a tail of the tape advantage here for Sam Page. When we look at the UFC experience, both of these ladies have 2 UFC fights. Luana Pinheiro has been getting out of there quickly, an average fight time of 3.53 minutes, while for Sam Page, she's gotten stopped after 1 round once and went to the decision the other time. So let's look at the finish stats for both of these ladies. We got 4 out of 5 finishes here for Sam Page and her wins, 3 by submission, 1 by knockout. And we got Luana Pinheiro, who has finished 8 of her 9 pro wins and has never been finished in her losses, while Sam Page has been finished in 2 out of her 3 losses. If we look at the striking numbers here, Luana Pinheiro landing 5.52 per minute, only absorbing 3.11 in a very small sample size, showing some nice power here, having knocked down one of her opponents. I think it was Frausto in the first round, and showing 63% striking defense, all very good. Sam Page is getting hit a lot more than she is hitting her opponent. She lands 3.45 per minute, but absorbs 6.8. She's a little more accurate than Luana is, but definitely much worse on the striking defense. Only 40% striking defense for Sam Page. Very alarming. Not the kind of stat you want to see against somebody who hits as hard as Pinheiro does. Pinheiro's base, though, is judo. That's what she goes to in her fights. Most of her wins are by submission. So you got to figure that she's going to try to do what she's already been doing in the UFC, which is getting takedowns and going to the grappling over and over again. We saw that mostly in the Randa Marcos fight. She will throw big bombs, try to punch her way in, but once she gets into that clinch, she's going to try to get you to the ground using judo throws, trips, sweeps, and reaps. Pinheiro, 5 of 6 on her takedown attempts. She's doubling the control time of her opponents, 13.68% to 6.84%, while Sam Page here is showing quite a bit of control time in her own right. 37% control time for and 8.75% control time against. Where Sam Page is going to get her control time is in the clinch. If you look at her regional scene footage and her UFC footage, she is very good at keeping her opponents back up against the cage. She's very strong. She's very physical, and she has great conditioning, so she can continue to do that for 3 rounds. I see Sam Page trying to get this onto the cage, trying to wear out Luana Pinheiro. I see Pinheiro coming out like a house of fire, like she always does. There's one big problem, though, in my opinion, in Luana Pinheiro's game, and that's conditioning. If we go to the Tapology page and go to this first fight, we're going to look at Pinheiro here and look at how quickly she's getting out of the cage. So Randa Marcos, illegal upkick, 4:16 round 1. Stephanie Frausto, 2:48 round 1. Helen Harper, 3 minutes round 1. Yasmel Arake, 2:34 round 1. Elaine Leal, 4:46 round 1. Jessica Rodriguez, 2:37 round 1. Charlene D'Souza, 1:40 round 1. She lost a split decision here to Chris Mosfer. She won a decision here against Jessica Rodriguez, and they got an armbar win here against Tatiana Araujo. The thing is that she has been to 2 decisions back in 2016 and 2017. So I don't know how relevant it is to now. But I think that these fights are on YouTube, and I just want to show you guys something really quick here that I found kind of alarming. It was the 3rd round of the Jessica Rodriguez fight.
United Healthcare.
And let's see here. I'm going to show you guys what happened. Oh no, this is only a 5-minute fight, so this isn't the one. It is Jessica. Maybe it was the Tatiana Araujo fight. Yeah, 22 minutes. At the end of the 2nd round, you guys, Luana Pinheiro couldn't get up. So here's the end of the 2nd round. She's on top. She's not doing anything. She's just catching her breath. And I don't know how much time there is left in the round, but you see her on top, and then they end the round here. The referee's going to get her off, and watch what she does. This is after 2 rounds, you guys. This is not after 3 rounds. This is after 2 rounds where her opponent is going back to her corner and she can't even get up off the mat, you guys. This is really alarming. Her coach has to help her back to her corner after only 2 rounds. Not good. And her opponent is exhausted too. This wasn't a high-paced second round, I can tell you that as well. She's got a serious conditioning problem. She may have fixed it. However, if she hasn't, Sam Hughes could be very, very live here late. This is going to be a very interesting fight because Luana Pinheiro, like I just showed you, is finishing fights over and over and over again in the first round. And she's very explosive. She hits very hard. She goes with these high-amplitude judo throws, which take a lot of energy to complete. You're completely lifting up your opponent and throwing their body weight to the ground. It's not easy. It's not something you can do over and over and over again. And we did see, some people think that Luana Pinheiro was faking that injury from the illegal upkick from Marco. Some think it was legit. Whatever you think, she didn't come back to fight the rest of that fight. And she was exploding and being very, she got 4 takedowns, landed a good number of strikes, scored a knockdown in the previous fight. So we know that she has power in her hands. But what happens after the first round? Sam Hughes used to run steeplechase in college. She's got excellent conditioning. If she survives the first round here, she's got very good Muay Thai. She hits hard. She's got excellent conditioning. She never stops moving, and she can wear you out against the cage. So while I'm thinking that Pinheiro should be able to get this fight completed in the first round, if she's as explosive as she has been in the past, if she attacks those submissions with vigor, because we have seen Sam Page be submitted once and knocked out once. So she's been finished in 2 out of her 3 losses. But if Sam Page can survive the first round, you guys, I'm really worried about Luana Pinheiro's conditioning, and I'm not at all worried about Sam Page's conditioning. And Sam Page is just a little bit underrated with her wrestling, with her striking, with her conditioning. So this is a close fight. I don't see this as being a massive line. I am not going to be betting on Luana Pinheiro as a -400 favorite. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be taking a long look at Sam Hughes here at +330. But the other thing that I'm going to be taking a look at, you guys, is Sam Hughes to win in round 3 at +2,500. I'm telling you guys, when you see that clip that I just showed you on YouTube of Luana Pinheiro unable to get up off the canvas after the second round, after spending the last 30 seconds of the second round on top doing nothing, this is something that we watch regional scene footage for. I'm going out on a limb, you guys. I'm going to pick Sam Hughes to win this fight by third round knockout. And I'm probably going to sprinkle those bets because at +2,500 in round 3, you don't have to throw a lot of units at it in order to get a big win there. And I'm probably going to throw maybe even a quarter unit on the Sam Hughes money line here. I feel like she just has to survive that first round. It could also be a really good live betting opportunity. But yeah, so starting off, going out on a limb here, the very first pick on this week's Just the Tip, you guys, is going to be Sam Hughes by third round knockout as a +330 favorite. But let's go on to the next one, you guys. We got Sean Soriano against Shayilan Nuerdanbieke. Say it with me. Nuerdanbieke. It's very easy. You just have to practice it a number of times, but that's a lot of syllables. Very interesting fight here, you guys. Let's get right over to the numbers. I don't believe that we have a bunch of statistics on either of these guys. However, let's look at the tail of the tape here. We see that Shayilan is 5 years younger. He's 1 inch shorter, and it's going to be Soriano with the 2-inch reach advantage. So while Soriano has a little bit of length and a little bit of height on Shayilan, it's going to be Shayilan who's 5 years younger here, much closer to his prime. We've got Shayilan training, I believe, out of the UFC PI here in Las Vegas. And Sean Soriano has been at Sanford MMA for a minute, and he was training there when it was Hard Knocks 365. despite the fact that Shayilan has been in the game half the time that Soriano has as a pro, Shayilan actually has 3 more fights. It's Soriano who's going to have about 30 more minutes of pro cage time and about 7 more years as a pro. But in only 5.5 years as a pro, Shayilan has 24 professional fights. This guy has been very, very active, averaging over 4 fights a year for his pro career, while Soriano is averaging less than 2 fights a year for his pro career. So Soriano's been a lot less active lately than Shayilan has. But, probably a little more experience. But in terms of cage time, not really. And in terms of professional fights, it's Shayilan who actually has the edge. However, Soriano has 3 more fights at the UFC level, you guys. And we see that the cage time, we got about 25 more minutes of cage time for Sean Soriano. How do these guys finish fights when they win? Nuerdanbieke, this is a 70% finish rate here, 41% by knockout, 29% by sub. And we've got Soriano with a 79% finish rate, half of them by knockout, 29% by sub. And this is an interesting number down here, you guys. We see that Sean Soriano has been finished in 84% of his losses, and it's 81% of Shayilan's losses here. No, 67, 71%. So in these guys' 14 losses, 11 of them have finished inside the distance. So that is where I like to start hitting these under bets, or the fight doesn't go to decision bets, because I like seeing a nice sample size of losses and know that when either guy loses, they tend to get finished inside the distance. And this is absolutely true here, as we see these guys are getting finished in 80% of their combined losses, and that's a 14-fight sample size. So my first bet of the night, you guys, is going to be Shayilan Soriano fight doesn't go to decision. The line on this fight is, the fight doesn't go to decision right now, is lined up around minus 118 on the aggregate. You can get it as good as minus 110 on 5 dimes. I believe I paid minus 110 for it, and I think I did 2 units on it. So it's a fairly big bet. Let's look at the striking numbers here. Get them centered on the screen for you guys, and we'll go through them. Now, Soriano, 4 fights, so we can hang our hat a little more on the sample size here. 3.49 significant strikes landed a minute, 2.5 absorbed. Very good striking accuracy up here at 61%. Striking defense okay down here at 54%. While Shayilan only landing 1.13 significant strikes a minute and absorbing 3.53 on his UFC debut against Josh Kulabau. Shayilan just pretty much wrestled the entire time. Didn't worry a lot about the striking. His striking's not great. He's extremely hittable. And that's not a good thing to be against Sean Soriano here. So this is going to be a very interesting striker versus grappler matchup, you guys. We see that Shayilan, in his only 1 fight here in the UFC, attempted 14 takedowns against Kulabau and was only successful on 2 of them. He got 40% control time, but almost all of that control time was clinch control time, not ground control time, because both of those takedowns that Shayilan got, Soriano pretty much got right back up. And Shayilan 100% takedown defense. He's just done a really good job of out-controlling his opponents. Sean Soriano, in his 4 UFC fights, has attempted 7 takedowns. Give me just a sec, guys. By the way, what's good, Alex Ramirez, the General, Tajik Bey, Grayson, Boris. I see all you guys in the chat. Thanks for hanging out on Tuesday night with me. Soriano is a striker first, not really a wrestler, but he has attempted 7 takedowns, and he's gotten 3 of them, averaging just over 1 takedown per 15 minutes. 15% control time for, but a very alarming 50% control time against. Excuse me, guys. So, yeah, that's a problem here, because we know that Shayilan is going to try to out-grapple Soriano. Soriano's got really good striking. He's long. His last fight was against Giagos up at 155. This one's going to be down at his natural weight class at 145. I think he'll look even better down there and even more powerful. So the question is Is Shayilan going to be able to control this fight long enough in order to bank enough minutes, win enough rounds to get a decision here? Because he's not much of a finisher on the offensive side. However, Sean Soriano has been finished in 3 out of his 4 UFC losses by submission and in 6 out of his 7 pro losses. So, even if Shayilan is unsuccessful with the grappling, maybe he lands a big shot, or maybe he can lock up a submission on the ground. He is a black belt, and he is a very good wrestler. But what I think is probably going to happen is that Sean Soriano is going to use that length and that good footwork. He's going to use that footwork defensively, constantly be circling here, and I think he's going to pick apart Shayilan from the outside. Shayilan, in his losses, has been knocked out once and submitted 4 times. However, the knockout came recently, and it was to Zhu Rong, and it was a very clean shot that knocked out Shayilan. It only took one, and if Zhu Rong can knock you out, I believe that Soriano can as well. I love the fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, you guys, because Soriano has been very deficient on the ground, and we do see that Nuerdanbieke's got 5 career wins by submission, and Soriano has 5 career losses by submission. So there will definitely be a path to victory inside the distance for Shayilan by submission. And then there's also going to be a path for Soriano to win inside the distance, as he's finished 7 of his 14 pro wins by knockout. And we've seen Shayilan knocked out in Wuling Feng by Zhu Rong. So if we look at the last 5 here in the strength of schedule, we see that Sean Soriano is fighting guys with just barely losing records, but 8.25 total fights on the aggregate. The average opponent for Sean Soriano has a record of 4 wins and 4.25 losses in the UFC. We see these last 5, a loss at 155 against Christos Giagos, a win over Noad Lahat, a win over Jose Mariscal by decision, a win over Saul Almeida by knockout, and a loss by submission to Bruce Boyington. And here we've got a win over by submission over a really fucked up name, a loss, that knockout loss to Zhu Rong, another Nuerdanbieke Bahitian, he beat by decision, Tanzhou Wang, win by submission, and then a loss to Josh Kulabau. Shayilan did look very one-dimensional in the Kulabau fight. He was absolutely outclassed from striking range when the fight was in striking range. And that wound up being just a little over half of the fight here, as we can see, 40.67% control time for, less than 0.5% control time against. And that means 59% of the fight took place at striking range. I think that's all Soriano needs to keep it in order to win enough minutes of this fight, in order to win it on the judges' scorecards or get the knockout that I think he can get. My pick is going to be Sean Soriano here, and I'm picking him to win by a second-round knockout, but my bet is 2.2 units on the fight doesn't go to decision. When I can get that at like a 53% implied probability, and I've got a 14-fight sample size on the losses, 11 of them have finished inside the distance, that gives me a 79% implied probability if we handicap the fight doesn't go to decision using the combined losses. Since we have a really nice sample size there, I feel that's a great edge over the books. So instead of just trying to win 1 unit on it, I'm trying to win 2. Also, I forgot to mention that I have a 2-unit bet at plus 100 on the fight doesn't go to decision for Pinheiro Hughes. This is just simply a play for me, you guys, on Pinheiro's conditioning and on her explosiveness in the first round with that judo, with that submission game, and she throws everything into every strike. So I think that either Pinheiro can get this fight finished early or Sam Page can get it finished late. I already am on 2 units here for the Pinheiro Sam Page fight doesn't go to decision, and I'm thinking about adding a 3rd round prop for maybe a 1/4 unit on Sam Page at plus 2,500, and I'm also thinking of maybe just sprinkling Sam Page's money line, because I think that she can last the first round and then give Pinheiro hell for the last 2. But let's move on now. Fight number 3, you guys. Cody Durden against Aori Qileng. Qileng, 2 years younger. They are the same height, and it's going to be Qileng who has a 2-inch reach advantage. Cody Durden is a southpaw. training out of ATT Atlanta. And Aori Qileng, Orthodox fighter, fighting out of Jindu Martial Arts. I also believe that Aori Qileng has been training at the UFC PI in Vegas along with Shayilan. But if you guys could maybe help me out there in the chat if you do know. But I do believe that Qileng and Shayilan have both been in Vegas in advance of this fight, training here so that they won't be coming in. They won't be jet lagged. But I do need to double check that. Aori Qileng, another Chinese fighter with a crazy amount of experience in a short amount of time. These Chinese dudes fight at an alarming rate, usually around 4 or 5 fights a year. When you look at guys like Song Yadong, Zhu Rong, Shayilan, Aori Qileng, look at this, 25 fights in 6 years for Aori Qileng, the Mongolian murderer. He's got 251 minutes of cage time, despite the fact he's still 2 years away from being 30. So he's got about 160 more minutes of cage time than Cody Durden does on the aggregate. He's got 10 more fights and about a half a year more in the game. It's Durden with 2 UFC fights to Qileng's only 1, and Durden with about 3.3 more minutes of UFC cage time. How are they finishing fights? Cody Durden, a fantastic finisher, bouncing around between 125 and 135. This fight will be at flyweight, and Cody Durden has a 90% finish rate, you guys. 5 wins by submission, 5 wins by knockout, and 1 win by decision. And Aori Qileng has an 11% submission rate, 28% knockout rate. So less than 40% of his wins have come inside the distance. So 3.67. So that's 7 wins inside the distance. And that will be 5 by knockout and 2 by submission. So Qileng can kind of finish you in more ways than one. Dean Amasinger was saying that Qileng, when he first started fighting, was pretty much purely a brawler, but then now he's really become a lot more well-rounded. He can be sucked into that brawl, as we saw in the Molina fight, but he also has the ability to be a little more patient, a little more technical. He can use his wrestling. He can use his submission game. He is very good there. Cody Durden, on the other hand, I think we're talking about a 2-time high school state champion in Georgia in wrestling here in Cody Durden. Definitely he's got really nice striking. He's a southpaw, so that can be difficult to deal with for some people. And Cody Durden's got a 90% finish rate as a pro in his wins and a 67% finish rate in his losses. He's been submitted in 2 out of his 3 losses, while Aori Qileng has been submitted in 3 out of his 7 losses. So we do have 5 out of the 10 career losses with these guys happening inside the distance. If we look at the striking numbers, once again, not much to go on here, you guys. We got a 2-fight sample size for Durden. We got a 1-fight sample size for Qileng. Qileng has been knocked down twice. And this is very alarming, you guys. This is 1 fight. And that number that I have highlighted shows Aori Qileng absorbing 189 significant strikes from El Chefe, Jeff Molina. In 1 fight, dude, 15 minutes, he absorbed 189 significant strikes from Molina. That's 12.6 significant strikes a minute, 47% striking defense. He was knocked down twice in the same fight. So Aori Qileng is definitely hittable, but so is Durden, as he's absorbing, 3.93 significant strikes a minute, but only landing 3.11. These guys, I don't know how much of this fight is going to be taking place standing, you guys. Both of these guys are good wrestlers. Both of these guys are very comfortable on the ground, and both of these guys have been submitted. In their 10 combined losses, 5 of them have been by submission, 5 of them have been by decision. So, maybe if these guys are looking to finish the fight, they might be looking to finish the fight via submission. We could see this be more of a grappling battle. Cody Durden, with that high school wrestling background, 15 takedown attempts in 2 fights. He gets 3.28 per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents 41% to 5.83%. He has given up 1 takedown of his own right. I think it was to Gutierrez. Qileng was 3 out of 4 on his takedown attempts against El Jefe Molina, and he outcontrolled Molina 13.33% to 4.78% and defended the only takedown that Molina shot. If we look at the strength of schedule numbers here, Durden just a little bit better in the strength of schedule, having fought Gutierrez and Flick in comparison to El Chefe. So Cody Durden, I think, is going to have a pretty good time deciding where this fight takes place. It's going to be Qileng with that 2-inch reach advantage. I think that could be significant, but I do think Durden has the better, cleaner striking here. I think that he actually punches longer and will probably be the cleaner, more technical guy on the feet. And I think that he will probably be able to stop the takedowns of Qileng, but it's going to be close when it comes to the grappling. I'm interested to see which one of these guys commits to the grappling first, because I think whoever does will have more success in this fight. My pick in this fight is going to be Cody Durden. I'm going to pick him to win by decision, but I could see this fight taking place inside the distance. I don't have any bets on this fight, and to be clear, it's one of the fights I have the worst read on the card. Both of these guys are fairly new, a little bit of an experience advantage for Qileng, a little bit of a tail of the tape advantage here for Qileng, a wrestling advantage probably for Durden, but very slight, and maybe a striking advantage here for Durden. Yeah, this is pretty much a coin flip for me, you guys. I'm going to pick Cody Durden to win by decision, but I don't have a bet on this fight, so I don't feel strong about it. Next fight, you guys, we've got Terrance McKinney going up against Fares Ziam, the smile killer. T-Rex McKinney, 27 years of age. Fares Ziam, still only 24 years old. And this is going to be his fourth UFC fight. Very, very young in the game is Fares. Fares is going to be the bigger man here. He's got a 2-inch height advantage, 2-inch reach advantage. It's going to be McKinney who fights out of both stances. Fares Ziam is an orthodox fighter. McKinney fighting out of Sikh Jitsu. Fares out of Bulgarian top team. But I do believe that Fares Ziam is now training at Sanford MMA. So that will be a good place to do a camp. It's a great place to do a camp. And he's got his hands full here with T-Rex. So we see the experience numbers here. It's kind of funny. Fares Ziam has one more fight than McKinney with 15-14. But it's Fares Ziam who has almost 100 more minutes of cage time. Why is that? It's because of the average fight time, you guys. Fares Ziam's in there about 8.23 minutes per fight. And for Terrance McKinney, it's 2.43 minutes per fight. So, I mean, Terrance McKinney with an average length of fight in 14 fights, 2.43 minutes. This guy is the definition of somebody that we stalk to find under bets and fight doesn't go to decision bets. These guys who fight with tremendous explosiveness usually have about one round of gas, because if you don't have any respect for your gas tank, if you throw 100% power into every strike, if you wrestle, like it's really only going to be a 3-minute fight instead of a 15-minute fight, when you don't respect that gas tank, you do see the fights finishing one way or another. And Terrance McKinney is one of the best examples we have of that type of fighter in the UFC. This guy is a human fight doesn't go to decision bet. I am already on that bet, believe me. So Fares Ziam, one more UFC level fight here with 3 in comparison to 2 for McKinney. And it's going to be McKinney, 6.93 minutes of cage time and only 2 fights in the UFC. 3.47 minutes is his average fight time, McKinney, in the UFC. While for Fares, all 3 of his fights have went to decision. Terrance McKinney has finished 6 of his wins by submission, 5 by knockout, for a 100% finish rate, while Fares Ziam has finished 4 of his wins by submission and 5 by knockout. So 9 of his 12 wins have finished inside the distance for a 75% finish rate. So of these 23 wins that these guys have, 20 of them have finished inside the distance. For handicapping a fight doesn't go to decision based on just the win on the finish rate on the wins, we're looking at an 85% implied probability. And if we look at the finish rate on the losses, in these guys' 6 combined losses, we have 5 of them finishing inside the distance. That would be an 83.33% implied probability that this fight finishes inside the distance if we're handicapping it based on the combined losses. I love the fight doesn't go to decision here, you guys. We'll take a look at that line here shortly. The striking numbers. Terrance McKinney has landed 12 significant strikes and already has a knockdown. That was obviously the second punch that he threw. It was the first jab that landed, and then the straight left down the middle, I believe, is what separated Matt Frivola from his consciousness. The steamroller got steamrolled by Terrance McKinney, man. But so there's not much here in terms of the well, here's a great little. We don't have much in terms of the statistics because it's only 2 fights for McKinney, but he's absorbed 4 significant strikes and he's been knocked down on one of them. And he's landed 12 significant strikes and there's been a knockdown there. So on 16 significant strikes in his 2 fights, 2 of them have resulted in knockdowns. Over a 10% chance that somebody's getting slept when they get hit in the Terrance McKinney fight. So that's another reason I love the fight goes to this or doesn't go to decision here. Fares Ziam is a really good striker, you guys. He's going to be longer. He's going to be the cleaner technical striker here. Great kickboxing background that this guy has, and he's got a ton of power in his hands, and he's slick on the feet. We see a 40% striking accuracy here. He lands 2.13 and only absorbs 1.67, showing a 65% striking defense. And I know that that's not impressive. I know if you haven't seen Fares Ziam strike, it's hard to believe that the guy's a great striker looking at those numbers. But here's the reason, you guys. In the 3 fights that Ziam has had in the UFC, he's had 29 takedowns shot on him. So that's a really good, in my opinion, way to determine how dangerous somebody's striking is. If you see somebody just getting shot on 10 times per fight, it means that the opponents just don't want to stand with this guy. They'll do anything to try to drag it out of the striking realm and into the grappling realm. And that's what his opponents have done so far in Fares Ziam. He's faced 29 takedown attempts. He's successfully defended 20 of them, showing 69% takedown defense. And he's being out-controlled 8% to 43%. So for Fares Ziam to be more successful and to look better in the UFC, he's got to get that defensive control time number down here. He's got to spend a lot more of his time striking, and he's that way he can show his length, he can show his technical abilities, he can show his ability to kick to the legs and to the body. While Terrance McKinney has done a pretty good job grappling, as he went heavily in the grappling exchanges after Sean Woodson, and definitely had some success controlling a lot of that fight. I don't have control time numbers, you guys, because that was a Contender Series fight. The control time statistics aren't available. But Terrance McKinney controlled about the first round and a half of that fight. And then finally, Woodson got up. And then when Terrance went to jump in for another takedown, he caught a jump knee that separated him from his consciousness. If we look at the strength of schedule here, we see the ratio is a little bit better for Terrance McKinney, and he's fighting a little more experienced competition. So a slight strength of schedule advantage here for McKinney. Definitely a power edge here for McKinney. And I would even say a grappling edge for McKinney, as we've seen him wrestle quite a bit. I know that Mike Chiesa was his high school wrestling coach. He trains with him over at Sikjitsu. So McKinney is going to be able to use some wrestling here. The problem is that Terrance McKinney is not a guy that goes late into fights. So this is why I like the fight doesn't go to decision. We'll take a quick look at Terrance McKinney and how long his fights take place, you guys. So McKinney over Frivola, 7 seconds. Ortiz, 1 minute and 12 seconds. Cavino, 17 seconds. Sanders, 16 seconds. Then he loses via triangle choke in less than a minute to Derek Minner. He lost via flying knee 1 minute and 49 seconds into round 2. So that didn't even go a round and a half. A win by rear naked choke over Charon Spain, 16 and 30. 43 seconds round 1. Bobby McIntyre rear naked choke, 2:57 of round 1. 7 seconds of round 1. And then he lost via a leg injury of 39 seconds of round 1. 43 seconds of round 3, he won via heel hook over Brandon Todd. So that's the longest any of his fights have ever went, and that was back in 2018. And then we got Tyrone Henderson, minute 39, round 1, minute 23, round 1, 2:15, round 1. And even if we go to the amateurs, 15 seconds around 1. So this guy gets in and out, and that's the type of style that he brings. He's like a Tasmanian devil. He throws everything into every strike. When he grapples, he will grapple and chain his takedown attempts together. It's an exhausting pace. Nobody really can keep that up for 5 rounds. I do see Terrance McKinney getting the job done, going through Fares Ziam here like a hot knife through butter. But if he doesn't, I do see Fares Ziam landing some big shots late in the second round and then the third round. And I don't see this fight going the distance. Let's look at the fight doesn't go to decision line for this fight, you guys. The fight doesn't go right now is sitting at about minus 190 on Bet Online. That is by far the best line that's available. Everywhere else, it's minus 265, minus 225, minus 250, minus 225. Let's even see if that's still available. Because if it is still available, I would suggest you get on Bet Online right now, because that is by far, by a mile, the best fight doesn't go to decision line that's available right now for this fight. And it's still there, it looks like. Minus 190, you guys. That will be one of my favorite bets of the week. I am on the under 2.5 in this fight, actually, at minus 150 for 1.5 units. That's my bet. The pick is going to be Terrance McKinney by first round knockout. But the bet is that the fight doesn't go to decision. All right. I keep going to the wrong one here. All right. So next fight, you guys. Loma Lookboonmee against Loopy Godinez. So we've got Loma's going to be 3 years younger. It's going to be Loopy with a 1-inch height advantage here, and they got the same reach. They're both orthodox fighters. Tiger Muay Thai for Loma, Titan MMA for Loopy. Thailand and Mexico are the countries. The pro experience is almost identical for these two ladies. The UFC experience almost identical. It's just that all 4 of Lookboonmee's fights have went to decision, while Godinez 34 minutes of cage time in 3 fights. So it's, Loma's at about 24 minutes in the UFC cage more than Loopy has. Neither one of these ladies finishing at an alarming rate here. Only 3 of these 12 wins for the combined have come inside the distance for Loma and Loopy here. 1 out of 6 by knockout here for Loma, and then 1 out of 6 by submission, 1 out of 6 by knockout for Godinez for 2 out of 6 overall. And then in the 4 combined losses, Loma has lost inside the distance once. It was by submission, and Loopy has never been finished. Both of these ladies are good strikers, but it's Loma who has the really extensive Muay Thai background. I think she started taking fights when she was 7 years old. She's basically born in a Muay Thai gym. She's been doing this for a very long time, despite the fact that she's only 25. She's already got 8 mixed martial artist fights, but I mean, then there's over 100 Muay Thai bouts, I believe, for Loma. So yeah, she's going to be the more experienced, more technical, better striker here. While we've seen Loopy really go to the wrestling and the grappling in her UFC time. She went over and over for the takedowns against Luana, Carolina, and absolutely dominated Silvana Gomez Juarez with the grappling in Silvana's UFC debut. And then prior to that, we saw her probably beat Jessica Penne, but it was a very close fight. That one was given to Penne. But if Loopy Godinez could grapple with Penne that well for 3 rounds, she can absolutely grapple with Loma. So I think that we're going to see Loma try to keep this fight on the feet, and I think that we're going to see Loopy try to get it to the ground. And we can see that Loma's landing 5.27 significant strikes a minute, absorbing only 3.13. The striking accuracy above 58% for Loma and around 55% on the defense. Loopy's absorbing more strikes than she lands. She lands 2.16 and absorbs 2.54. We got about a 58% striking defense here for Loopy, so just a little bit better than Lookboonmee on the aggregate and not as accurate. Now, Godinez in 3 fights has attempted 30 takedowns and gotten 10 of them, and she's been successful keeping her fights in control time positions 60% of the time. 45% control time for, 15% control time against. She's out-controlling her opponents at a 3-to-1 ratio, showing 85% takedown defense, while Loma is gotten 6 of the 16 takedown attempts that she's went for. So even though we think of her as a Muay Thai striker, she's attempting 4 takedowns per fight, and she's gotten them at a 3/8 clip. 1.5 takedowns completed per 15 minutes. She's getting 8% control time, but being controlled 24% of the time. So even though she's out takedown attempting her opponent 16-13, she's actually being out controlled at almost a 3-to-1 ratio. So not very efficient in the grappling exchanges is Loma Lookboonmee. So that's why I think Godinez is going to go to the grappling here. And she is taking this fight on a little bit of short notice. And that's a problem when you're counting on somebody who has a grappling heavy game plan to come in on short notice and push that pace for a full 3 rounds. Loma showing very good takedown defense in her own right here at 77%. She successfully defended 10 of 13 takedown attempts against. And in the 60 minutes that she's been in the cage, about 14 and a half minutes of control time on only 3 completed takedowns. She can be held up against the fence as well, as Sam Hughes did accumulate quite a bit of control time against Loma in their fight. If we look at the strength of schedule numbers here, you guys, we see that Loopy's got a better ratio here, but it's Loma who's fighting the more experienced competition, so it's a little bit close. The wins, it's going to be Loma who's got better wins, and the losses are also very close. So it's very hard to say because, look, the tail of the tape, very close. The strength of schedule, very close. The pro experience and UFC experience, very close. It's Lookboonmee striking against Godinez's grappling. Who's going to be more efficient? Who's going to be better at implementing their game plan here? I've seen Loopy go to that wrestling over and over again. She goes to it enough for me to think that she can win enough minutes of this fight. I think this fight definitely goes to decision here. But if there is a finish, I like Loopy Godinez by submission because Loma has been submitted once in her career. And her base is, even though she works the grappling and she is a complete mixed martial artist, she's a striker first and a grappler second. And Godinez really does seem to have that commitment to the grappling that you want to see when you think that somebody's going to win enough minutes to win the fight. So I am going to go with Loopy Godinez to win this fight by decision using the grappling exchanges, but I see it being a very close and greasy fight, and I don't have a bet on it, you guys. So let's see where we are here. We are 5 fights in, so this is about the halfway point here for Rafa Garcia versus Natan Levy. I just watched some tape on these guys today. This is an interesting little matchup, you guys. I can't wait to get into it with you guys. Rafa Garcia, 3 years younger than Natan Levy. It's going to be Levy who's got the 2-inch reach advantage and the 2-inch height advantage and the 1-inch reach advantage. Levy's a southpaw. Garcia's an orthodox fighter fighting out of Team Punisher in Mexico, while Natan Levy's fighting out of Syndicate MMA in Las Vegas. He's originally from Israel. It is Rafa Garcia with about twice as many pro fights, but just about 7 more minutes of cage time. So even though Rafa Garcia has twice as many pro fights and has been doing this twice as long, these guys have spent about the similar amount of time actually in the pro cage fighting. Garcia with 2 UFC fights to Levy's 1, and about 3 times as much UFC cage time for Rafa Garcia in comparison to Natan Levy, who's only had 1 Contender Series fight. So yeah, it's going to be Levy with a little bit of a size advantage here, and it's going to be Garcia with the experience advantage here. Garcia has finished, it looks like 8 of his 11 fights inside the distance, 7 by submission, 1 by knockout, while Natan Levy has finished 3 of his 6 pro wins. These guys have 2 combined losses, and none of them have ever been finished. Natan Levy has never lost. The striking numbers, there's not much here, you guys. Garcia pretty much got pieced up by Gritzenmacher. He hurt him bad in the first. Looked like he had a chance to finish him, but Gritzenmacher was just tough. And then Garcia looked like he might have emptied the tank against Gritzenmacher a little bit, and then he got pieced up the rest of the fight, but he never gave up. And he even got a takedown late in the fight. Got about a minute and a half of control time. He didn't completely gas out, but it was Gritzenmacher who was pressuring, throwing a ton of volume, and was just a really tough out that night. Natan Levy, when I see this guy on tape, I'm seeing somebody that's with only six pro fights, so that's very alarming. I don't like to bet on guys that only have 6 pro fights coming into the UFC. They're going to see a lot more experienced competition out there. And Levy's really only been able to finish 3 of these guys, 3 of the 6 guys that he's beaten. But man, do I like what I see out of this guy in terms of being well-rounded and powerful. And he's got good takedowns. He's got really good jiu-jitsu. And he favors position over submission, but he does work for submissions. Really like what I saw from him on the ground. He's a karate black belt and also a kung fu black belt. So he does throw some really nice kicks from the outside when he stands. I think it's going to be Garcia who has the better hands here, but I think Levy will probably be the guy that's the more powerful striker, as he can land some kicks he kicks like a mule. And then, Garcia's a very good grappler. Both of these guys, when they win, they're winning by submission. Garcia gets a lot of takedowns, can stop takedowns. He can accrue control time. But Levy, in his Contender Series fight, you guys, looked really good. And look at this. I mean, he controlled over 75% of the fight. He controlled it. He got both of his takedowns and controlled his opponent 77.56% to 12.52%. And even in the striking exchanges, he looked good. And Garcia is doing the same thing. He's out-controlling his opponents 22.61% to 0.17%. And he's attempted 15 takedowns in 2 fights. So he likes to wrestle as well. I just don't. He's going to be smaller than Natan Levy. Natan Levy's going to be much bigger, much stronger, much more powerful here. And even though we hear about Levy's striking background with the karate and the kung fu, when I watch this guy fight, it's the grappling exchanges that really impress me. I see that there's a lot of people on Garcia here. He is the more experienced fighter. He's definitely fought the better brand of competition, you guys. There's really no arguing that. But when it comes to the meat and potatoes of this fight, which is who's going to win the striking exchanges and who's going to win the grappling exchanges and who's going to be better conditioned, I got to believe it's Natan Levy on all 3. Then again, it is a step up in competition for him, and I want to kind of go over the kind of competition that these guys have been fighting before we get to the halfway mark here. So we look at a guy like Garcia, and even before the UFC, he's fighting UFC-level competition, beating Humberto Bandone, Eric the Ghost Pepper Gonzalez, Esteban Payan, Chase Gibson, who was on the Contender Series. So he's fighting guys that have gotten around 8-3 record, 6-2 record, 5-2, 17-12, 10-3, 18-7. His losses are to Gritzmacher, 14-4, and Nasrat Hakparast at 12-3. And he was basically showing his striking in these fights. With Levy, I think he's going to get the chance to show that he's a better grappler than Levy, but I don't think he's a better grappler than Levy. I think Levy's a really good prospect. I think he's very well-rounded, and I love his ability to be able to win minutes. And he's shown really good fight IQ in the cage as well. But the thing is, like I say, it's an experience advantage and a strength of schedule advantage here that he has over Levy, because we've only seen the win over Shaheen Santana, 6-0. Then before that, you look at guys like Ben Lugo, Nick Battis, 1-0. Henry Bajarona, 3-3, Cameron Underhill, 2-1, and Marcus Sims, 0-0. But all 5 fights were in LFA. He's had 5 LFA fights over the course of a 2.5-year period. So it's a good regional scene situation there. And he looked really great against Shaheen Santana, who's a good grappler in his own right. I'm going to pick Natan Levy here to get this guy out of there, actually. No, not get him out of there. I'm going to pick Natan Levy to win by decision. Both of these guys have never been finished. Natan Levy has never lost. But I do like Levy to win this fight by unanimous decision, you guys. Let's see here. So, yeah, we're about halfway through. Let's see what you guys are talking about in the chat. We're going to pick it back up here with Tucker Lutz against Sabatini. And let's see here. And we got XBL on Twitch saying, was literally just about to look for some handicap videos from the GOATs out there. And what do you know? The GOAT of all GOATs is live streaming is just the tip. Let's go. Money. What's up, dude? XBL, I haven't seen you in a minute, man. It's good to see you in here. We got Hype MMA saying, let's fucking go. Appreciate you, Hype. We got Cody fight doesn't go to decision. Plus 167. Good enough for me. At plus money, that's definitely intriguing because Cody's a finisher. 10 of 11 wins inside the distance for Cody Durden. And like I say, you know, these guys, they have been finished as well. Durden by submission and Shayilan by submission. So definitely, or not Shayilan, Aori Qileng. So both of those guys have been submitted in the past. So yeah, that could be a really good at plus money, a nice little bet there. We got Luke Fulton saying, let's go, much love. And we got Raw Torque saying, if T-Rex was fighting out of Sanford, it's a lock. Average Joe saying, fight reminds me of Jotko versus Soriano. If Soriano wins, it's inside the distance. If Ziam wins, it's by decision. Yeah, the reason I don't think that Ziam wins by decision if he wins, I think he wins inside the distance because that's just the way that, look, Terrance McKinney will tell you himself he's a killer-be-killed fighter. And those are the kind of fighters that we bet on. That one of the reasons that I bet so heavily on the Molina fight doesn't go to decision in his most recent fight against Lacerda was Lacerda's a killer-be-killed fighter. He'd only been out of the first round once in his career. And it's the same thing with McKinney. We're talking about a 14-fight sample size. This guy's only been out of the first round twice. And both times he was out of the first round, the fight's finished. Once he was finished, the other time he got a third-round heel hook finish. So, you know, it's definitely one of those things. I think Ziam's going to finish him if he wins because I think that T-Rex will just empty the gas tank. And if he empties that gas tank, man, he's going to be there to be finished. And Ziam is an excellent kickboxer, you guys. T-Rex will leave his liver in the cage if needed. You damn right he will. And James Say Word saying, what it do, Uncle Weezy? Raw Torque saying he's going to take a flyer on Loma. Natan a dude or what? Yeah, Natan's a big dude. Clint just posted a bet on Rafa on Twitter. Yeah, I saw that Clint is betting Rafa, and I don't hate it. You know, Rafa's more experienced, and he's fought the better level of competition, and it's arguable that either one of these guys is going to be better in the striking and the grappling exchanges. But what Clint's doing here is he's going with the guy that has been tested at the higher level more. He's never been finished in a loss, and he's fought the better brand of competition. So I don't hate that bet. I'm just thinking that Levy is ready to take the next step. And I think that Rafa Garcia would be a logical type of opponent for him to get a win over if he is going to take that next step. A guy who's been fighting the top level of regional scene competition, as Natan Levy is really just starting to feel that top level of the regional scene competition, one of which being Rafa Garcia. So yeah, I could see why Clint bet Rafa. And there's, you know, the line is moving there, you guys. If you know, we always have to pay attention to which way these lines are moving. And you can see that Levy opened up around minus 150, and now he's only at minus 101. So the sharps are betting for Garcia here as he opened at plus 130 and was bet immediately down to like plus 120, plus 115. And now he's minus 120. So there's a lot of people thinking Garcia is going to get the job done here. Clint is one of them. Garcia is undersized for 155, says my guy Aldo. I agree with him. Levy is going to be the bigger guy, but not much bigger, but just way more muscular. I mean, he's more impressive looking, that's for sure. Natan might freak out, have an adrenaline dump. It absolutely could happen. Raw Torque saying if push came to shove, I'd side with Rafa. It's a close fight, man. Any parlays this card? The only fighter that I was thinking about parlaying, Jeremiah, was Taila Santos. We'll get to her a little bit later on. I think Yanez, if you like Yanez, I think he's parlayable. I would consider a Calderwood Yanez parlay, but I'm not usually one that parlays, you know, two money lines together. I like the four-leggers I give out for my guy Hammer and Hog here after we're finished with all the fights. Borgie's saying, is there going to be story time this week? There's actually no story time this week, you guys. I've got to, I don't want to keep telling stories if they're not the best ones. And, the guys, the ones that I've already told you guys, and I've got a couple others that are in the plans, but I just don't want to water it down right away. I've got some other people. I'm going to give you some college stories sometime soon because I was an idiot partier in college and I got myself into a whole shit ton of trouble. We'll have some fun with story time down the road, but I don't have anything ready for you guys today. I've got another 6 fights to go through here. And Bout Better saying, all love, Weezy. All love to my guy, Bout Better. Good to see you in here, my man. And Daz Files saying story time. Yeah, we're going to do story time soon, man, but not today. We're going to get into the second half of this card right now, you guys. We got a really good one here with Tucker Lutz and Pat Sabatini. I'm thinking about doing a balls deep breakdown on this fight a little bit later on. I'm going to be doing 2 balls deep breakdowns tomorrow. One of them will be the Brady Chiesa fight. And then I'm thinking about doing Sabatini Lutz, or if you guys have any requests, let me know in here or on Twitter. But it's going to be Tucker Lutz here, who's 4 years younger. We got the same height, and it's Lutz who's going to have the 2-inch reach advantage. Pat Sabatini, 5 more pro fights and about 14 more minutes of cage time. And he's been a pro for about another year and a half than Lutz has. Lutz 3 UFC level fights. Sabatini has 2. All 3 of Tucker Lutz's fights in the UFC have went to decision, while the average fight time for Sabatini has been 8.44 minutes. If we look at how these guys are finishing fights, Pat Sabatini finishing at an 80% clip, 12 of his 15 wins coming inside the distance, 2 by knockout, 10 by submission. While we've got Tucker Lutz has finished 6 of his 12 pro wins inside the distance by knockout, and 2 by submission. So 8 of his 12 wins have come inside the distance. Tucker Lutz has been finished by knockout once, and Pat Sabatini has been finished by TKO once, as he had his elbow dislocated in the he fought the alley cat. What's his name? James Gonzalez, the alley cat. It was a very similar injury to the injury that Jamal Hill suffered against Paul Craig. It was an arm bar. Pat couldn't get his arm out of there, and his elbow dislocated. So that was a pretty nasty one to see. That's the only time Pat Sabatini's ever been finished. And I don't even know who finished Tucker Lutz. It was a long time ago. If we look at the striking numbers here, we see that Lutz has put up some pretty impressive numbers in his 3 fights so far, with at least with the ratios, the volume, and the defense. In terms of 5.09 significant strikes landed per minute and only 3.67 absorbed. And that's what I'm referring to when I refer to the defense, is just he's got a plus 1.46 significant strike differential, which is very good. It means he's efficient. But the striking defensive number here at 46%, not impressive. Pat Sabatini hasn't been striking much in his fights. 1.6 landed, 1.72 absorbed, 50% accuracy. He does have 1 knockdown landed and 27 significant strikes, and he's shown 55% striking defense in his own right. In the 2 fights that Sabatini's had in the UFC thus far, he's had 6 takedown attempts. He's only gotten 1 of them. But despite the fact of only having 1 takedown in 2 fights, he's managed to amass 59% control time on the aggregate and only allow 12.73. So that's about 73% of his fights are taking place in control time positions. And Pat Sabatini, while he has serviceable striking, he's a grappler first. He's a D1 wrestler in college. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And Tucker Lutz is really well-rounded in his own right. He's got good wrestling. He's got very good takedown defense. He's busy with his striking. He throws to the body, throws to the legs, throws to the head. She seems to throw with decent power. I'm going to say that Lutz is going to have the striking advantage here. He's going to be the guy that's going to be more comfortable in the striking exchanges between him and Pat Sabatini. And it'll be Sabatini who's trying to get this fight to the ground. So Tucker Lutz has been the more efficient wrestler thus far in the UFC, as he's gotten 7 of his 11 takedown attempts. For a 63% takedown accuracy, he's averaging 2.33 takedowns per 15 minutes and out-controlling his opponents about 30% to 12%. So, for every 1 second of control time that Lutz is getting, his opponents are getting about 0.4. So very good efficiency there. And that's with his opponents actually attempting more takedowns against Lutz than Lutz has attempted against his opponents. So, and then we see this nice little 84.62% takedown defense here for Tucker Lutz. He successfully defended 11 of 13 takedown attempts in 3 fights. So, when you are looking at a Lutz bet here, I think if you want to bet Tucker Lutz, what you're saying to yourself is this guy is going to be able to stay on the feet here. And he's going to be able to stay on the feet for probably more than 7.5 to 8 minutes. He's going to probably need to keep this in the striking exchanges 9 minutes or more in order to stay out of trouble against Pat Sabatini, because the guy is a very good wrestler and a very good grappler, and he's got excellent fight IQ. He knows where he's best. He fights to his win condition, and he knows where he is in the cage. I talked the last time we saw Sabatini fight against Emmers, I mentioned the Tristan Connolly fight because a lot of people were talking about Sabatini in the Connolly fight, and they said he came out there and he dominated the first. He came out there and he dominated the second, and then he looked like shit in the third. He took his foot off the gas. He played defense. He even let Tristan take him down and get some control time against him in the third round, and he lost that third round. But I thought the other way to look at that was you could say that Pat Sabatini took his foot off the gas, but you could also say that here's a kid making his UFC debut, with a 13-3 record, and he won the first 2 rounds. And instead of going out there and doing something stupid or making a mistake, he kind of sat back. He realized he'd won the first 2 rounds and said, I'm just going to bank this win. And you usually don't see that kind of awareness from people making their UFC debut. And when we had seen his next opponent, Jamal Emmers, make several questionable fight IQ moves in the cage, I said that fight was going to come down to fight IQ. And guess what? It did. Jamal Emmers did something really stupid. He started playing footsie with Pat Sabatini, and the fight ended like that. So I like Sabatini because I know if I put my money on him, I can count on him fighting to his best win condition, which is going to be using the grappling, using the wrestling, and using that good conditioning of his in order to drain his opponent. The problem is that Lutz has excellent conditioning in his own right. He's got very good takedown defense here at 84.62%, and he can even get takedowns when he wants, but I just think he's going to be busier on the feet. He's going to be more accurate on the feet. And I think that he can work. His leg kicks are really good, you guys. And if he can kind of slow down Pat, really kick those legs early in the fight, it may make it difficult for Pat to enter on the takedowns here. I'm going to pick Tucker Lutz, you guys. I do like Pat Sabatini. The 1 out of 6 on the takedowns, that worries me. He's going to need to be better with his takedowns than that in order to win enough minutes to beat Tucker Lutz here. So no matter what side you're on, though, I do like this fight going to decision. The way I see it finishing inside the distance is if Sabatini gets a submission. But Tucker Lutz has done a pretty damn good job of not being controlled in the cage and getting right back up when he gets taken down. So I'm going to pick Tucker Lutz, you guys, to win this fight by decision, but I don't have a bet on this fight. And I know why Tucker Lutz is the kind of like the public dog this week, but I think there's a lot of good reasons for it here. I think this is going to be a really tough fight for Sabatini. A couple of really good prospects here with bright futures in the UFC, and I'm really looking forward to see which one of these cats comes out on top. But the pick for me, you guys, it's going to be Tucker Lutz by decision. The next fight, you guys, Adrian Yanez against Davey Grant. Adrian Yanez, 8 years younger. The young man is only 27 years old, while we got him going up against a 35-year-old bantamweight in Davey Grant. Davey Grant's going to be 1 inch taller. It's going to be Yanez with the 1 inch reach advantage. I'm giving Yanez the tail of the tape because 8 years age difference is a big deal, and he's also going to have a 1 inch reach advantage here. Yanez fighting, as far as I know, out of Metro Fight Club. It's going to be SBG Manchester and all the SBG gyms in Europe for Davey Grant. fighting out of England. The experience numbers are actually pretty similar here, and you would not expect the 27-year-old Adrian Yanez to have more fights and more professional cage time than Davey Grant at 35, but that's the case. Davey Grant is not an active fighter. He fights about 1.5 times per year, while Adrian Yanez has been a lot more active here, fighting over 2 times a year. And he's got about 40 more minutes in the pro cage than Davey Grant. So not only does Yanez have a tail of the tape advantage here, he's got an experience advantage. But it is Davey Grant who has fought a higher percentage of his career at this level, having 8 of his 18 fights taking place at the UFC level, while for Yanez, it's less than 25% of his pro fights that have been fought at the UFC level, 4 out of 17. If we look at the finish stats for these guys, we're going to see Adrian Yanez has a 78% finish rate. That would be 11 out of his 14 wins have come inside the distance, 9 by knockout, 2 by submission, 3 by decision. Davey Grant, a great finisher in his own right, finishing 85% of his 13 wins. So that would be 11 of his 13 wins coming inside the distance. I'd say probably 7 by submission and 4 by knockout. No, it'd be 8 by submission, 3 by knockout. Very impressive. These guys finish fights. And then we see Davey Grant in his 5 losses has been finished by submission in 4 of them. He's never been knocked out, and Adrian Yanez has never been finished. So in the 8 combined losses for these guys, 4 of them have come inside the distance. That, for me, I would handicap the fight goes or fight doesn't go right around minus 100, because Davey Grant has never really been knocked out. Well, he never has been knocked out. And that's Adrian Yanez's path. While, I don't think Davey Grant's going to be knocking out Yanez. He's very tough. I do see this fight potentially going to decision here. But, with the power that Adrian Yanez has, and we're going to touch on that power right here, you guys, it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that as tough as Davey Grant is, as game as he is, Adrian Yanez might be the first dude to knock this guy out. So let's look at these striking stats and see what I'm talking about here. This is 4 fight sample size, so it's not, these aren't just video game numbers with a very small sample size. This is very impressive here for Yanez. So 6.13 significant strikes landed per minute, 4.8 absorbed. So that's a positive 1.33 significant strike differential per minute. Adrian Yanez is throwing almost 16 significant strike attempts per minute here, while his opponents are throwing about less than 11. So a volume monster. He's out-ratioing his opponents in volume by a crazy amount, you guys. 39% striking accuracy. That's not great, but we don't necessarily worry about that kind of accuracy when we see the number right below it, and that's that he's landing a knockdown on 3.88% of the significant strikes that he lands, which works out to 3.56 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Adrian Yanez, you guys, has got serious power. So we've got a 55% striking defense here for Yanez. He's never been knocked down, has Yanez, in 4 fights. And Davey Grant is landing 4.21 and absorbing only 3.25. So a positive 0.96 significant strike differential per minute. He's much more accurate landing here at 48%. He's knocking his opponents down on 0.55% of the significant strikes that he lands. And that's 0.35 knockdowns per 15 minutes. We see a 56% striking defense. And we see that Davey Grant has been knocked down 3 times in 282 fights. So despite the fact that he's never been knocked out, he has been knocked down, and there's a very good chance that Yanez will be the 4th person to knock him down. If we look at the grappling numbers, we see something that pops off the page here for Yanez. Yanez is a fantastic striker. I do know he has a grappling background as well, and he is good on the mat, but he's a guy who prefers to keep the fight standing. That's where he wants it. That's where he's at his best. That's where he's at his most dangerous. And we love to see that he's not even attempted a takedown in the UFC. He's 4-0, but his striking is good enough that he hasn't even had to go to his grappling offensively in order to win fights yet. And then we look and we know that he likes to keep the fight standing. And in 4 fights, we could see less than 1% of control time for and only 4.5% control time against. And he's showing 100% takedown defense, stuffed all 5 of the takedown attempts against him. So Adrian Yanez's fights are taking place at striking range on the aggregate more than 94% of the fight. That's exactly the kind of thing that you want to see from somebody that wants to keep the fight standing. Davey Grant, is he going to be able to wrestle Adrian Yanez? Well, in 8 UFC fights, he's had 26 takedown attempts, so a little over 3 takedown attempts per fight. So he's been kind of busy with the wrestling, but he's getting those takedowns at a pretty good clip, you guys. 12 of 26, 46% takedown accuracy. He's averaging over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's getting 24% control time while allowing 20.67% control time. So even though Davey Grant hits hard and he's shown some power recently, you got to believe that Davey Grant is going to try to use this wrestling and this grappling. I mean, he's gotten, so he's gotten 8 of his career 13 wins are by submission, you guys. So, this is probably his path, because I don't think he's going to outbox Adrian Yanez, and I don't know if he's under the impression that he is as well. Even, most fighters really do believe in themselves, but, the smart fighters are the ones who admit when their opponent is better than them in one realm, and then they try to take the fight to the other realm. And I think that if Davey Grant wants to be smart here, he should try to have this fight take place around the aggregate amount of control time that his fights have been taking place in the UFC. So at 24% for, at 21% against, that's 45% of his fights that are taking place in control time positions, while it's only 5% for Yanez. So who's going to win that? Is it going to be Yanez's 100% takedown defense, good footwork that keeps the fight standing? Or is Davey Grant going to shoot 5, 6, 7, 8 takedowns in this fight, get a couple of them, and bank some minutes and win some rounds using control time here? We haven't seen any evidence of that yet in terms of people being able to do that to Yanez. Will Grant use a wrestling-heavy game plan here to win this fight? I don't know, but we do see that Davey Grant has fought the better strength of schedule here. That should be assumed. 1.33 ratio for Grant, 1 for Yanez. The average record of a Yanez opponent has less than 1 win and less than 1 loss, while the average Grant opponent is 4-3 in the UFC. And then if we look at who these guys are beating, it's Yanez who's, mostly beating debutantes here, while we've got Davey Grant beating guys with an average record of 4.25 and 3, 7.25 total fights, a 1.42 ratio. And the guys that are beating Grant have a record of 3.75 and 3, 6.75 total fights. So we look at Davey Grant, we see names like Manny Bermudez, Gregory Popov, Martin Day, Jonathan Martinez, and Marlon Vera. And then we see for Yanez, it was Costa, Gustavo Lopez, Victor Rodriguez, Brady Huang, and Kyle Estrada. So Davey Grant has got a strength of schedule advantage here. Davey Grant should have a grappling advantage here, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to, if Yanez keeps stuffing takedowns at 100%, then Grant's grappling advantage probably won't mean anything. If this thing stays on the feet, I do see Yanez really piecing up Davey Grant from the outside. He's just got to avoid those big shots that Davey Grant throws every once in a while. He throws from the hip. He comes from weird angles, and he's dangerous because of that. So he could absolutely catch Yanez with something, but, I think that the way this fight takes place, Adrian Yanez so smooth on the feet, such a great striker. You got to believe he gets the job done here and is just really slick and cruises by Davey Grant here. I got him winning this by unanimous decision. I'm going to say Davey Grant continues to have never been knocked out, shows that toughness, but I think he gets the crap kicked out of him for 3 rounds here. It's going to be Adrian Yanez by unanimous decision here, you guys. The next fight, Taila Santos against Joanne Wood. It's not Calderwood anymore because she married her head coach over at Syndicate MMA in Vegas, John Wood. So now instead of Joanne Calderwood, she's Joanne Wood, because if she did the hyphen thing, she would have been Joanne Calderwood Wood, and that would have just been too much. There's too much wood in that name. So it's just going to be Joanne Wood here. She's going to be 7 years older than Taila Santos. Taila Santos still only 28 years old. Taylor's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage here. The experience numbers is going to be a slight edge here for JoJo. She's got 2 more pro fights. She's got about 50 more minutes in the cage and about 4 more years as a pro. And then also about 2/3 of her pro career has taken place at the UFC level, while it's just a little over 25% of Santos's career that has taken place at that level. About 75 more minutes in the UFC cage for JoJo Calderwood here. So, yeah, she's definitely the more experienced mixed martial artist, but it's going to be Santos that's much younger and a little bit bigger here. If we look at how these ladies finish fights, we're going to see a 40% finish rate for JoJo, 33% by knockout, 7% by sub, and Taila Santos has a 67% finish rate. She's finished 12 of her 18 wins inside the distance, 2 by submission, 10 by knockout. In these ladies, 7 combined losses, 3 have come inside the distance. JoJo Calderwood has been submitted in 3 of her 6 UFC losses. The other 3 came by decision. Taila Santos has only lost via split decision once to Mara Romero Barella. I wish that fight never happened because I was fading her every fight after that and at my own peril. If we look at the striking numbers here, we see really good numbers for both of them, but the numbers jump off the page a little bit more here for JoJo because of the volume, you guys. She throws a lot of volume. She doesn't hit particularly hard, but she does have some knockdowns. She's got 3 UFC knockdowns and 1,001 significant strikes landed. She lands 6.75 per minute and only absorbs 4.5 for a positive significant strike differential of 2.25 significant strikes a minute. She's landing at a 50% clip and showing 52.5% striking defense. So Calderwood can win minutes at striking range here. But Santos absolutely is doing a great job here too. She's out-ratioing her opponents at a significant strike differential of 1.54. She lands 3.55 and absorbs only 2.01, throwing about half the volume that Calderwood does. But then again, Taila Santos does take her fights take place a lot more in control time positions. And Santos much better defensively here, showing a 64% striking defense here as compared to a 52% striking defense for JoJo. Both these ladies spend a pretty good amount of time in control time positions here. 42% for JoJo Calderwood and 58% for Taila Santos. But notice the efficiency here for Santos. An 86% takedown accuracy. 13 out of 15 takedowns here. 2.6 per 15 minutes. And Taila is out-controlling her opponents at like a 3-to-1 pace. 43% to 14.5%. And showing 89% takedown defense in her own right. So, yeah, I mean, over 80% takedown offense and defense is a massive grappling efficiency advantage here. While we see JoJo Calderwood only stopping takedowns at a 63% rate, she's out-controlling her opponents by about 3%. But, you know, she's gotten 5 more takedowns than her opponents have, and she's still only out-controlling her opponents by that much. So while Calderwood has been good at going to the grappling when she needs to, she's gotten 16 of her 29 takedown attempts. She's over 50% getting her takedowns, and she's almost controlling 25% of the cage time with that grappling, with that cage control. So Calderwood can win minutes on the ground as well. It's just that Santos is way stronger, and she's way more efficient, and she just does such a good job of winning minutes with her grappling. And Joanne Calderwood has shown an inability to stop that in the past, and she makes defensive lapses on the ground. She's getting submitted by Jennifer Maia. You know, that's a bad look. When she loses inside the distance, it's always by submission because she makes mistakes on the ground. So I can absolutely see Taila Santos dominating this fight using her grappling. We would expect to see a strength of schedule advantage here for Calderwood, and we do. 1.16 ratio for Calderwood to 0.94 for Santos, and fighting the slightly more experienced brand of competition is JoJo Calderwood. However, JoJo's wins are over women with losing records. On the aggregate, in all those wins for JoJo, the average record of the women that she beats, 3 wins and 3.71 losses for a 0.81 ratio, while Taila Santos is beating women with winning records at a 3.5 wins and 2.75 losses. So just as experienced of opponents as Calderwood is beating, but much better in the win-loss ratio. And then Taila Santos somehow managed to lose to Mara Romero Borello in her UFC debut. She said that she had nerves. Whatever the excuse was, it was a performance that you shouldn't watch because it'll make you think that JoJo is going to win this fight. I don't think she's going to. I think Taila Santos is going to use her grappling here to win minutes. The fact that she can get takedowns whenever she wants and that Calderwood makes defensive lapses on the ground and is fairly easy to take down at a 63% takedown defense, I think that Taila Santos is going to win this fight by decision, you guys, and win it going away, just dominating the grappling exchanges and racking up a ton of control time. I got Taila Santos winning this one comfortably. I see some people in here. My guy Valdur in the room. MT Swantech in the room. Let's see, NCKM in the room. Made it live. I'm happy, man. And Wheel Kick Ignacio. Yeah, it's good. Oh, DXJC saying thoughts on over 1.5 in Yanez Grant. Dude, I don't know if I like time props because Yanez is so dangerous. So but DXJC, the way I go on these time props is I'll look for something where I'm seeing something in the stats, and usually it's the combined losses. And that Davey Grant has never been knocked out before, and that Yanez's path to victory is a knockout. So just on that right there, I would say that I'm looking for the over 1.5. However, this guy Yanez has transcendental power. He's landing a knockdown on over 3% of the significant strikes that he lands over a 4-fight sample size. So it's natural to think that, this could be the first guy to knock out Davey Grant. He's notoriously tough. He never quits. But, if you get touched in the right spot, you wind up looking at the lights. So it's not a bet that I would be looking to make for or against. But what my stats tell me is my stats are telling me to bet the over. But then I look at Yanez's power and I say I can't do it. So I said it right the first time. So it's Dewar. No, it's Dewar. Damn it. I keep fucking up your name, dude. You're gonna have to message me, Val, on Twitter and give me the goddamn pronunciation because I keep fucking up your name and you're always in here supporting me and shit, and I'm treating you like a prick. So anyway, all right. Let's go on to the next fight, you guys. I got Taila Santos winning that one by decision. We got Kyung Ho Kang against Hani Yaya. One of my favorite things to do is to talk about the fact that these guys have got 18 combined wins between the two of them in the UFC, and neither one of these guys has beaten anybody with a winning record. Not one in 18 combined wins. So that's, unbelievable to me. But, and we can see it right here in the ratio. Both of these guys have ratios below 1. Ronnie Yaya's ratio 0.56 in his wins. And that's the average guy that he beats has a record of 1.5 and 2.67. And then the average guy that Ho Kang beats, 2 wins, 2.33 losses with a losing record of a 0.86 ratio. So this is a grappler versus grappler matchup, you guys. Hani Yaya 36, Ho Kang 33. So definitely I would give the tail of the tape advantage here big time to Ho Kang. He's younger. He's got a 3-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage. It's going to be Yaya with the experience advantage, as he has 39 professional fights to Ho Kang's 26, and he's been doing this for about 4 more years. And he's got twice as many UFC fights with 18 compared to 9 for Ho Kang, and almost twice as much time in the UFC cage. So yeah, Yaya's got the experience advantage. Both of these guys are submission grapplers. Ho Kang finishing 77% of his fights, Yaya finishing 78%. So they both finish at almost the exact same rate. It's just Yaya's all of his inside the distance wins are by submission, while Ho Kang, it looks like, has 2 knockouts as well, in addition to the all the submissions, which is like 6 of them, I believe. So yeah, he's got a lot of them. Anyway, 12 of them. I'm sorry, 12 knockouts and or 12 submissions and 2 knockouts for Ho Kong. So 14 out of 17 coming inside the distance. Very impressive. And then we've got Ho Kong has been finished in 2 of his 8 losses, and Yaya has been finished in 3 of his 10 losses. But in their 6 combined UFC losses, neither one of these guys has ever been finished in the UFC. So one of the bets that I have for this fight, you guys, I have the over 1 point or the over 2.5 at minus 150. As Yaya is not really finishing much in the UFC, he finishes by submission. Qileng Ho Kong finishes by submission. But both these guys are excellent grapplers, and I could see this being a boxing match, which is very boring. But if we look at the striking stats, we see both of these guys don't land much, and that's because they spend most of their time in grappling exchanges. Ho Kong lands a little more than he absorbs. Yaya lands a little more than he absorbs. It's Ho Kong with the power and the accuracy, though, and a little bit better striking defense, and he's been knocked down less. So I'd give Ho Kong a striking advantage here. And in terms of the grappling, Yaya is the more willing grappler, but Ho Kong is the more efficient grappler. So this is a very close fight, you guys. We see Ho Kong's fights are taking place in control time positions 63% of the time. And for Yaya, it's 67% of the time. So this is probably going to be a grappling match, but both of these guys are very comfortable there. Yaya is very comfortable on the ground, as we see. He's only got 26% takedown defense. That's the sign of somebody who's, when they see somebody trying to take them down, they say, thank you, I wanted to be on the ground. And Ho Kong has shown pretty good takedown defense in his own right. So if he wants to keep this fight standing, he could potentially do that and win a striking match here, because he's successfully defended 15 of 21 takedown attempts against and has only yielded 16.23% control time. And we see that Yaya, getting older here, he gasses out, and he's only getting takedowns at a 34% clip. So, he's going to have to be a little more efficient with his wrestling. He's going to have to get those takedowns at a higher percentage clip than that in order to win enough minutes on the ground to beat Qileng Ho Kong here. The strength of schedule, not great for either guy, but at least Ho Kong has fought some guys with winning records. I'm going to go with Qileng Ho Kong to win a striking-based decision here over Ronnie Yaya. And like I said, I've got a 1.5 unit bet on this fight going over 2.5 rounds. Next fight, co-main event, you guys. This is a great one. We got Michael Chiesa against Sean Brady. Oh, damn it. My guy, Equity Sports Analytics, in the room. Too much wood. If it was Calderwood, wood. Yeah, as it is. It's just too much wood, man. But good to see you in here, Equity Sports Analytics. You've always been commenting on my videos lately. I really appreciate it. But, yeah, man, this is a firefight. I can't wait for this one, you guys. Michael Chiesa against Sean Brady. So Brady's going to be 5 years younger here. It's going to be Chiesa that's going to be 3 inches taller and has a 3-inch reach advantage. Chiesa is also a southpaw, which makes him a little bit tricky to deal with. We got Sick Jitsu going up against Renzo Gracie, Philly. Philly, stand up. You got a couple of big guys on this card, man, with Sean Brady and Pat Sabatini coming out of that Renzo Gracie Philly camp. It's a big day for them if they can both get wins here. Both of these guys fighting out of the United States. So Chiesa's definitely got a tail of the tape advantage here, and he's going to have an experience advantage over Sean Brady as well, as we've got a little more cage time, 9 more fights, and about 6 more years as a pro for Chiesa. And then we see that about 2/3 of Chiesa's career has taken place at the UFC level, while for Brady, it's less than 1/3 of his career that's taken place at the UFC level. And Chiesa, 100 more minutes in the UFC cage. Brady, a 50% finisher overall, you guys here. 29% by submission, 21% by KO. He's finished 7 of his 14 pro fights inside the distance, and 2 of his UFC wins, of his 4 UFC wins inside the distance, both of them by submission. While Chiesa, all of his inside the distance wins are by submission. So we've got 11 out of his 18 wins coming by way of submission for Michael Chiesa. And Michael Chiesa has been finished in 100% of his pro losses. 4 of them by submission, 1 of them by knockout. Very interesting here. We've got a 5-fight sample size between the two of these guys where they've lost, and 100% of those losses have come inside the distance. This is probably a good spot to bet the fight doesn't go to decision. If we look at the striking numbers here, what I always say about Michael Chiesa is that his striking is deficient at the UFC level. Everything he does on the feet with his striking is basically done to either try to suck you into a takedown attempt or to pressure you against the cage so that he can shoot in on a takedown. Everything that he does with his striking is meant to get the fight to where he really wants it, which is on the ground. And then there's Sean Brady, who's got really good striking in his own right. While we see, Chiesa over a 16-fight sample size, you guys, is landing less than 2 significant strikes a minute. It's a guy who's he doesn't care about striking. It's not how he tries to win fights. He's never knocked anybody out in his life. And he does have 1 UFC knockdown. Jorge Masvidal, you should be ashamed of yourself. You are the only UFC fighter that has ever been knocked down by Michael Chiesa in 16 UFC fights. It was Jorge Masvidal who wears the albatross around his neck of having been the only person knocked down by Michael Chiesa. 1.87 significant strikes landed a minute, only 1.72 absorbed, 40% striking accuracy, 54% striking defense. He's never been knocked down, but it's also very impressive that he's only been hit 263 times, Michael Chiesa, in 16 UFC fights. Some of those fights, 5-round fights, and against the top level of the division. So it's very hard to outstrike Michael Chiesa because it's very hard to keep the fight standing long enough in order to actually outstrike him. Brady landing 4.72 significant strikes a minute, absorbing 3.6, positive 1.12 significant strike differential. Throws a lot more volume on the feet than Chiesa does. Much better striking defense at 64%. Okay, so I'm going to give Sean Brady the striking advantage here. Michael Chiesa is like a fish out of water on the feet. But when he comes to the grappling, you guys, I don't really know who to favor. The easy answer is Chiesa, right? 69 takedown attempts in only 16 fights. He's gotten more than half of them. He's averaging 3.62 takedowns per 15 minutes. And once he gets the fight to the ground, he's active with submission attempts, averaging over 1 submission attempt per 15 minutes. He's out-controlling his opponents 48% to 17%. And he's keeping his fights in the grappling realm for about 2/3 of his UFC career. So over 100 of the 153 minutes that Michael Chiesa has been in the UFC cage has been either in clinch control time or ground control time. So he's excellent at taking the fight to where he wants it, putting it in his realm, and keeping it there. Sean Brady is very good at doing the exact same thing, you guys. Sean Brady controls his opponents 37.68% of the time and then only yields 3.52% control time against. His opponents, he's out takedowning, attempting his opponents 15-7, and he's out takedowning his opponents 9-0 is Sean Brady. About a 12-1 for every 12 seconds of control time Sean Brady gets, he yields 1 second of control time. When you got Sean Brady on top of you, it's like being trapped underneath a refrigerator. This guy, he's built like a square. He doesn't even look like he should be able to make the weight class. He's got muscle on top of muscle on top of muscle. And what's terrifying about that is usually people that are built like Sean Brady gas out. And I haven't seen Sean Brady really gas out yet. He gets the job done. He wears on people. And when he's able to be the one initiating the wrestling exchanges, he's just so brutal on top. Heavy elbows, constantly looking for chokes. He can get a guillotine with just one arm. He's got a next level squeeze. And I mean, when you're trapped underneath him, there's just no getting up. And Tom C saying, but who has the cooler samurai tattoos? Man, that back tattoo of Sean Brady is baller as fuck. And I'm not disrespecting Michael Chiesa's tattoo game at all because it's next level. It's fantastic. But Sean Brady might be better everywhere, including the tattoo game, because that back tattoo is so baller. But Sean Brady has shown 100% takedown defense. And I think that's very important, you guys, because if this fight goes to the ground, and I think there's 100% chance that it will, if this fight gets there, you want to see your guy being the one that brings it there. And Sean Brady's so big and strong. I don't know if Chiesa is going to be able to take him down and hold him down. And if he makes a mistake going for a submission and winds up with Sean Brady on top of him, I think it'll be over quickly. Brady's just a savage on the ground, and like I say, it's like having a refrigerator on top of you. The guy is just his ability to be able to control his opponents with the grappling is really next level. But when we talk about this fight, we have to keep in mind the whole time that it's going to be Chiesa who's bigger, Chiesa who's longer, Chiesa who's more experienced, Chiesa who's fought the better brand of competition, and Chiesa who's fought the much bigger percentage of his career against the highest level opponents. And I mean, when we look at the strength of schedule stats here, you guys, this is where it steps out. So 1.73 ratio for Chiesa, 1.62 ratio for Brady. Close, right? Look at the total fights. Chiesa's fighting such experienced competition, 18.75 total fights to 8.5 total fights for Brady. So the average record of a Brady opponent, 5.25 and 3.25. So he's fighting really good competition. But the average Chiesa opponent, 11.88 wins and 6.88 losses. So definitely the strength of schedule advantage goes to Chiesa. Chiesa's beating the better brand of competition too, with 0.24 better ratio and 10 more total fights. And then if we look at the losses, the guys who are beating Michael Chiesa have almost 20 UFC fights between them, on the average, and have a 1.5 win-to-loss ratio. See names like Vicente Luque, Neil Magny, Rafael Dos Anjos, Diego Sanchez, Carlos Condit. And then we can go even further back into the advanced stats here, you guys, and see, Anthony Pettis, former champion, Kevin Lee, Beneil Dariush, Jim Miller, Mitch Clark, Joel Lozon, Francisco Trinaldo, Jorge Masvidal, Ally Quinta. This guy has fought a who's who of the UFC. And the guys that he's beating, there's only three guys with losing records here. Iaquinta winning record, Cuivanen losing record, Colton Smith losing record, Trinaldo 17-7, Mitch Clark 2-5, 22-14 for Miller, 15-4 for Dariush, 9-10 for Condit, 19-13 for Santos. And then you look at the losses. There's not a guy that he's lost to that doesn't have 10 UFC wins. You have to have 10 UFC wins to have even beaten this guy. 14-3 Vicente Luque, 11-9 Pettis, former champion, 11-7 Lee, 15-12 Joe Lozon, and 12-8 Jorge Masvidal. So, and then for Brady, we'll look at Brady's strength schedule here, and we see, 10-5 Jake Matthews, which is a very impressive win, and a dominant win from pillar to post. But before that, it's Christian Aguilera, Ismail Nardiev, and then Court McGee. And Court McGee, I believe, Court McGee tried to take him down 6 times, wasn't successful in any of it, and it was one takedown attempt in the Nardiev fight. He successfully stuffed all of them, and even though when he gave up 7 takedown attempts, he gave up less than 102 seconds of control time on those 2 takedowns. So very impressive here. It's so when you handicap this fight, you guys, you think like, is it going to be, the superior striking and the heavy top game of Brady, or is it going to be the experience, the better strength of schedule, the ability to get to the back that Chiesa has? I just think that this is going to be in the grappling realm. Chiesa will probably get Brady into a couple of bad spots, but if he makes any mistakes down there, I think Brady's going to finish him. I'm picking Sean Brady to win this fight by submission, you guys, in the second round. I've just been so impressed with what I've seen from Brady. I think the logical next step for him is to get a win over Chiesa, a guy who is fairly one-dimensional with the grappling, and we'll be able to see how Sean Brady's takedown defense holds up, how his grappling defense holds up, and how he can swim on the ground with a UFC vet who has faced everybody in Chiesa. But everything that I've seen on tape from Brady thus far leads me to believe that he's up for the challenge, and I'm picking him to win by submission, you guys. And that brings us to the main event. We finally got here. I am fucking talking way too much today, you guys. Hour and 45 minutes. So we did the main event breakdown on DFS by the Numbers channel. Miesha Tate versus Qileng Vieira. We talked about her for 45 minutes. If you want to see an in-depth look at that main event, go over to DFS by the Numbers channel and check out that main event deep dive. We've got Miesha Tate 5 years older than Qileng Vieira. Qileng Vieira is the bigger woman here at 2 inches taller. She's got a 2-inch reach advantage. Both of these ladies are orthodox fighters, but it's going to be Qileng Vieira who's much bigger here. I mean, we've seen her. She has a very hard time making 135. She's gassed out late in fights because of the rough weight cut. She's a big, strong woman. And Miesha Tate is looking bricked up as well. I saw some pictures of her recently. She is not in bad physical condition by any stretch of the imagination, man. So this is going to be a very interesting main event. It's going to be Tate, who's twice as experienced here in fights and in cage time and in length of pro career. And Miesha Tate's got 3 more fights at the UFC level and about 40 more minutes in the UFC cage. If we look at how they're finishing fights, almost identical finish rates here as Qileng Vieira at a 54% finish rate and a 58% finish rate from Miesha Tate. Both of these ladies have been finished in their losses. It is a 72% finish rate against for Miesha Tate. That's 5 of 7 losses coming inside the distance, and 1 of 2 losses coming inside the distance for Qileng Vieira. So that makes 6 of 9 fights have finished inside the distance for these ladies. That has me liking the fight doesn't go to decision for this one, because I think the fight doesn't go to decision is fairly close to even here. Fight doesn't go right now is at plus money for Vieira Tate, but yet 2/3 of these ladies' combined losses have been inside the distance, and this is not a 3-round fight, it's a 5-round fight. So I like the fight doesn't go to decision here at plus 145. That's going to be something I'm going to be sprinkling after I'm done with this, you guys. If that's still out there on Bet Online, I think that's going to be something I'm going to attack here at plus 145. So I do like this fight to finish inside the distance. If we look at the striking stats here, Miesha Tate looked a lot better in the striking last time. I thought her striking took, she had 5 years off almost. She had a baby. And, we weren't sure what we were going to see. And of course, it was against a 43-year-old Marion Renault, who's already announced her retirement prior to the fight. So we can't be over the moon with the performance that Tate put on, but her striking looked like it had taken some significant leaps forward. And Qileng Vieira's striking is okay. She doesn't like to stay in the striking range for long. She much prefers to grapple. So I actually think the striking is going to be close, you guys. Both of these ladies absorb more strikes than they land. Qileng lands 2.66 and absorbs 3.84 per minute. She's only landing at a 36% clip and is showing 53% striking defense, not great. She's been knocked down 1 time in 342 significant strikes absorbed, and it's the same thing for Tate. She's been knocked down once in 366 absorbed. They both have almost identical striking defensive percentages. Tate's more accurate on the feet and has actually landed a knockdown, while Vieira's never knocked anybody down. So, while this is on the feet, I think it's going to be very, very close. Vieira will have the reach advantage. Vieira might throw a little more volume here, but I do think Tate's striking has gotten a lot better. Now, if we get into the grappling stats, we're going to see that Qileng Vieira is attempting about 4 takedowns per fight, but she's getting them at almost a 50% clip, you guys, averaging 2.19 takedowns per 15 minutes and very impressively out-controlling her opponents at a 44% clip to 10% clip. Also, Qileng, while almost getting takedowns at a 50% clip, which is very good, is stopping takedowns at almost a 93% clip defensively. She's successfully stuffed 13 of 14 takedown attempts against in her 7 UFC fights and has only been controlled less than 10% of her UFC career. So she's definitely the more efficient grappler. She has better takedown defense. She gets takedowns at a more efficient rate, and she outcontrols her opponents much better than Miesha Tate does. Tate gets her takedowns at about a 26% clip. She attempts about 5 per fight, so she's more active shooting takedowns, but not as good at actually completing the takedowns as Qileng. She's averaging 1.42 takedowns per 15 minutes and is active with submission attempts on the ground, averaging 1.2 per 15 minutes. And she's outcontrolling her opponents 31% to 26%. The takedown defense, though, is not good, you guys. And this is what leads me to believe that Vieira can win minutes on the ground. Because if Miesha Tate hasn't figured out how to stop takedowns at a better than 55% rate, Vieira can get quite a few takedowns and can win rounds and bank a lot of minutes using her wrestling and top control and just trying to get on her back and riding out rounds like that. That's what Vieira is very good at. So I'm going to give the grappling advantage here to Vieira, and I think the striking is very close. And I want to talk about one thing here, and it's going just a little bit further in depth, you guys, to Miesha Tate's takedown defense. So if we look at these numbers here, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more on this. So we go 150%. I'm going to highlight this line here, which is the Rin Nakai fight. So if we go over here to the defensive side, we can see that in this row right here is the takedowns that her opponents have attempted against her, and here's the ones that they've gotten. So Miesha Tate's opponents have been 17 for 38 on takedowns, so very good. But look, in the Rin Nakai fight, Rin Nakai was 3 of 19 on her takedown attempts. Now, Rin Nakai is not a bantamweight. She's not a wrestler. She was just trying to wrestle Tate, and she was unsuccessful doing so because she's much smaller and she's not a great wrestler. If we throw out the Rin Nakai fight, you guys, she's been taken down 14 times out of 19 attempts. 14 of 19. You guys, that's just around 25% takedown defense for Miesha Tate here. That's not good. It's going to be easy, in my opinion, for Vieira to win minutes early in this fight. But I mean early because the problem here is the conditioning, you guys. It's a 5-round fight. What happens after round 2? What happens after round 3 if Vieira is as tired as she was in the Kunitskaya fight, in the Eubanks fight? She got knocked out in the first round by Aldana. But, Sijara Eubanks is a 125-pounder, not a 135-pounder. And Eubanks had pretty much Vieira completely exhausted by the end of the second round of that fight. Vieira barely got off the stool. She looked like death warmed over between rounds there. That is the X factor for me in this fight. I've never seen Vieira go a hard 3 rounds. And in order for Vieira to be able to win minutes, you guys, she's going to have to go to her wrestling and push that wrestling heavy game plan, which is more likely to exhaust your gas tank even quicker. My read on this fight is that Vieira, not being a finisher, okay, in her 5 UFC wins, she's only finished 1 of them. And that was Sarah McMahon, who is a notorious gasser. Sarah McMahon is notorious for having 7.5 minutes of conditioning, and then she gets submitted. And it's exactly what happened against Qileng. But Miesha Tate does have better conditioning than that. Her strength and conditioning game is definitely on point now, you guys. So if you're on the Vieira side, I would caution you to wait to look at weigh-ins. Make sure that she had a good weight cut, because the only chance that she has of winning this fight, in my opinion, is by bringing enough cardio to go 5 rounds with a wrestling heavy game plan. And she's not going to be able to do that if she has another rough weight cut, like she did in the Kunitskaya fight, like she did in the Eubanks fight, like she's likely to have in this fight, because she's so big. She's huge. She's 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. I had heard a rumor. I don't know if there's any truth to it, but I had heard that Vieira was a stunt double for Lorenzo Lamas on the old television show Renegade. I mean, they have the same hair. They actually kind of look the same in the face too. And if that's the case, now I didn't fact check that, so I can't prove that, you guys. But if that's the case, this is a tough woman, a big, strong woman. So is she going to be able to make 136 pounds? Is she going to be able to go a full 5 rounds with a wrestling heavy game plan? Because if the answer is no, I could see Miesha Tate getting a 4th or a 5th round finish here with Vieira just flat out gassed. I'm picking Miesha Tate to win this fight, you guys, in the 4th round by knockout. I might change my mind on that if Vieira looks fantastic on the scales, but there's no reason for us to believe that she can go 5 rounds against anybody because she's not knocking anybody out. And I don't think she's submitting, I mean, the women who submitted Miesha Tate, Miesha Tate has been finishing 3 of her 4 UFC losses, but she was submitted twice by Ronda Rousey. And what was the other one? Let me see here. The other loss, submission, and then a knockout to Kat Zingano back in 2013. So, Kat Zingano, the only woman to beat Amanda Nunes, and then Ronda Rousey, the greatest of all time back then, submitted her twice. So, this is not exactly, the kind of thing that you worry about that much. It was Amanda Nunes. No, she wasn't subbed twice by Rousey. It was only once. It was Amanda Nunes who subbed her then. So, yeah, she's been, finished inside the distance by Amanda Nunes, Ronda Rousey, and Kat Zingano. But Vieira is not a finisher. So I just think the conditioning is a big deal, you guys. I think that we're going to see Miesha Tate start to take over this fight late. I think the strength and conditioning is going to be the biggest factor here. I see Vieira gassing out after about 2.5 rounds here if she has another bad weight cut. The pick is going to be, Miesha Tate by 4th round knockout. That gets us through all the fights, you guys. So let me come up with a 4-leg parlay for you guys. And then we're going to go to Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. So the first leg of the 4-leg greasy parlay is going to be the Terrance McKinney Faraz Ziam fight doesn't go to decision. I absolutely love that bet. And then the second leg is going to be Loma Lookboonmee, Loopy Godinez fight goes. No, let's not do. I don't like fight goes. I want violence, you guys. So let's get greasy here. I'm doing my Shayilan Soriano one. 11 of 14 losses for these guys coming inside the distance. I could see Soriano knocking out Shayilan. I could see Shayilan submitting Soriano. So let's say violence in the Shayilan Soriano fight. Violence in the McKinney Ziam fight. Violence in the Vieira Tate fight. And then the Santos money line. So 3 violence bets and a money line bet should get us a nice plus money 4-leg parlay here. So we're doing Vieira Tate violence. We're doing McKinney Ziam violence. We're doing Shayilan Soriano violence and the Santos money line, which leaves us with one order of business, you guys. The last thing that we do every week on Just the Tip, Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. You guys, who's it going to be this week? Who's going out there and just shaving ass from pillar to post is going to absolutely open some eyes, destroy, get a big win here? Could it be Luana Pinheiro against Sam Hughes, a minus 400 favorite? I think that she could do it, but it's not my pick. Could it be Sean Soriano here? 0-4 in the UFC, but a minus 300 favorite in this spot? Do we want to lay minus 300 on a guy who's 0-4 in the UFC and against a good wrestler? The answer to that is no. Durden Qileng, not touching that. I like McKinney to shave ass, but I can't count on it. I just think that fight's going to end violently, but I can't be sure which one of them is going to get it done violently. But what I can be sure of is that one fighter is going to dominate from pillar to post and is going to leave very little opening for any kind of offense from her opponent. That fighter is Taila Santos, ladies and gentlemen. I love Taila Santos in this spot. While she may not get the job done inside the distance, I do believe that we're going to see very few offensive moments of any caliber out of Joanne Calderwood. I see Taila Santos taking her down in all 3 rounds and beating the shit out of her on the ground and maybe even getting a late submission or knockout via ground and pound. Ladies and gentlemen, your ass shaving of the week at the 2-hour mark of this week's Just the Tip is Taila Santos. Let's go. You guys, we did it. We got everything done here. We got a 4-leg parlay. We got Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. We had 12 fights broken down from a statistical perspective. God bless each and every one of you guys for hanging out with me here. Cage my IQ in the room saying I think Joanne Wood defeats Taila Santos with the plus 240 mark. I disagree, but Joanne Wood does have the more experience here, and she probably is the better striker, but the defense, the grappling efficiency of Taila Santos, I think is going to make the difference here. The MMA Jedi saying, I jumped on the under 2.5 from McKinney versus Ziam yesterday, minus 135. That's where my guy Brady got it. I got it at minus 150. But either way, I think that's a great bet. Tenzi Terry saying, thank you, Uncle Weezy. Let's go. DFS by the numbers saying Santos is going to shave Wood's ass. Man, I hope so. Yeah, he also said that, Vieira is the better fighter. David Milks, my guy in the room, saying Philly Gracie can't parlay Sabatini and Brady. Not bad. I like that call. But listen, thank you guys. And by the way, MT Swantek said, what is the possibility that these two guys sort of cancel each other out because they are pretty evenly matched in a split decision, or is this that draw? I don't know, man. If I think you might be talking about Kang Yaya, because that was about when we were going over that fight, but I could see it potentially happening. It's going to be a greasy fight, but let's not have this be a greasy card, you guys. Let's stack a bunch of cash tickets like flapjacks and make a ton of money on UFC Vegas 43. Thank you guys all for hanging out with me. I'm going to go right back to YouTube right now and put some timestamps on this video for everybody. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you find my content useful for you guys. All the stats that you see right here on this show can be downloaded for free in the description of this video. I have the matchup template. I have the link to this week's Stat Diggers, which was on Pub Sports Radio, which was filmed on Sunday. I have the link to this week's DFS show that I did with Brady, Luke, and AJ. That was today on Pub Sports Radio. All the links to that are in the description. Thank you so much for spending your Tuesday night with me. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. God bless. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow as I will be back with 2 Balls Deep breakdowns. We will be starting with Brady versus Chiesa. Keep an eye out on Twitter. I will announce when that will be going live. Thanks, you guys. Have a great night.